cultural dinner last night. Reg was there, and he talked about his name, and that's been going on for centuries. And so I wanted to share with you my name. It's Eagle of Many Colors, Spirit Woman. So with that, I just wanted to the Signs of Safety complements the Cree culture. The approach has adapted, shifted, and evolved, and so has the culture. And so when you look at a teepee, I'm just gonna put this here. I don't know. Okay, so does anybody recognize him?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's our human services minister, and I was talking to him about this presentation that I'm going to do today. When you look at the teepee, it's also representative of a woman. So when you see it, it's a woman. She's wearing a skirt, and on the top, the control flaps are her arms, and they go out like this. And it's very nurturing. So that's what these values are a complement of. So what it does is there's 15 teepee poles, and each one is representation of a value. So the first 3 poles are humility, respect, and obedience. And those 3 poles they create a tripod. And when you put those together right, it creates a strong foundation so that when the wind comes in, it doesn't take it down. So when I was explaining this to a young boy, he said to me, Dana, that's like my grandparents' love. They were the ones who kept my family together when when my parents were out doing their thing. So to him, those 3 poles also mean mother, father, and child. And so for him, that's what he had mentioned to me. When I do these interviews with the children, they are also teaching me about more and more, just like the Signs of Safety, how it evolves. So where are the teachings? So the 4th pole is happiness, and that creates the door. So when you talk to the children, they always want their family to be happy. The 5th pole means love. So I was interviewing a young girl, and she was telling me about everything that was going on in her home that was good. She had all her needs were met, everything looked great. But if I didn't know those 15 poles, and if I didn't know from experience that children always have love and happiness together, I would have missed the fact that she didn't put love in her teepee. So I said to her, I noticed love isn't in here. And she says, well, I was hoping that you wouldn't notice that, because if my mom and dad loved me as much as they say they do, then they wouldn't be out drinking and doing drugs all the time. Which brings us to our next value, which is faith. Sorry. So, like I said, the teepee represents a woman, and I wanted to say, in honor of my mother, my grandmothers, and all the children, or all the women everywhere, I'm honored to share with you some of the teachings that come with the teepee. So when we talk about faith, we talk about like knowing that there's a higher power, recognizing that. And when I was talking with a young boy, he told me that his grandma, faith is also believing what another person has to say and taking that for granted. So when I was talking to this young boy, he told me that when his, because he was the only grandchild that lived with his grandparents, and when with his grandma, I should say, when his family came to her, she gave them, provided to them and everything, and to the point where it was exhausting for her. And for her, he actually drew, the fire is supposed to be inside the teepee, and that's like a sacred place. But what he did was, he brought that fire, he drew it outside of the teepee, and he colored it 2 certain colors that meant his grandparent, or his kukum's love. Kukum is also another word for grandma. So he said, this is my kukum's love. And then he drew like the smoke going up from the fire, and the smoke represented his grandmother's prayers to Creator. So that's when I had learned that, you know, all of these values, they go across to each and every person in any type of culture. I've done these in the area that I'm from, to the whole district, and now it's expanding. So the Tipi Teachings, each pole can also represent kinship. So like I said, there's mother, father, child. And when we talk about happiness, love, faith, kinship, being thankful, sharing, strength, good child rearing, hope, ultimate protection. Cleanliness is when I'm talking to parents about of sound mind, so how long have they been sober, how long, and some of the strengths that we pull from that. The control flaps, each one complements the other. So when we're talking about cleanliness, the control flaps, they control the smoke that come in and out of the teepee. So what happens sometimes, and I'm mindful that I'm not putting parents in a position where they're feeling like bad for the choices that they've made. But I use this analogy to explain that when the control flaps are closed and there's a lot of smoke in that teepee, it's really hard to see where your life is going. It's really hard to see the path that you want to be on. So I tie those in with parents and talk about addiction there. The circle of life, when you look at the bottom of the teepee, there is a circle. And I talked to, and it identifies the 4 aspects. So what I've done was took in one of the teachings and talked about birth, that's infants, teenagers, adults, and they say in our teachings that adults are around the age of 30. And then elder, and then if you'll notice, elder and infant are lapped together, because when you're elder, you start to go back to being an infant stage where you depend on other people and things like that. So I was going through this with a mother, and Signs of Safety teaches us that we can scale. We can scale between 1 and 10 questions. And by honoring some of the teachings, what I did was I talked to a mom and asked her to describe to me her life cycle. So when did she come into care? What are some of the issues that she faced? And she spoke about her mother's cycle and now her daughter. So that's 3 generations impacted by Child and Family Services who needed intervention. So this young mom grew up in care. She was about 20 years old. And to her, it really helped her to see that not only was she affected, but her daughter. And she also seen that she was growing up the same way her mother was, but also that she scaled all the issues between 1 and 10. Which one was the heaviest issue for her? And what this did for the child intervention worker was allowed them to prioritize each issue and how they were going to address it with her. So it not only highlights the child safety and security, but like I said, it looks at the 4 aspects. It's been preserving the culture. What I hear from other nations and people all across everywhere is thank you. Thank you for reminding our children, our parents, our youth, because this is what we're taught and we're missing it, you know, so I'm always given a thank you. So the young boy here, I don't know if you can see it, but I was going over the Tipi poles with him, and he had a list on the side of the 15 different poles. And he said to me, so he was a young boy who grew up in and out of care and knew addiction for as long as he can remember. He was the oldest child, and there was about 6 siblings altogether. So he says, okay, my family has love, we're kind to each other, we're happy, we listen, and we have family. And when he got to family, he stopped for a moment, and he looked back at his list, and he said, you know, nowhere in here does it say drugs or alcohol. He says, that's what my mom does. So he took her and he drew her on the outside of the teepee, and he said she's selfish. He didn't know how to write selfish, but self is there. He said she's selfish. So for him, the first time that he recognized addiction didn't play a part in a normal, healthy family was huge. So he was able to, to recognize that. So in child intervention, I've been working in child intervention for many years, and what I've seen is it's allowed, you know, the practice has shifted, changed, and grew, and so has the culture. You know, when you're doing these interviews with the children, youth, and families, it allows you to build a significant connection with them because you're honoring, you know, because this is a teaching that's anchored in the values of the culture. So, you know, it allows you to look at the strengths and weaknesses of them and bring some of those challenges that they face in a humble way, so that they can see for the first time, you know, you're not blaming them, you're putting them in a different spectrum, and they're able to identify with you as a team. So it's like the practice, it's maintaining, it's growing, and it's nourishing the families that we work with. So like a mother, the Tipi Teachings are evolving. You know, they're nourishing our families, and you know, just like an infant who's learning to walk, that infant will stumble and get back up and start to walk again. That's how we need to look at our families. So, you know, the saying is, the world will always cooperate with a made-up mind. So with that, I just